the third generation of video game consoles, aka the 8-bit era. This generation began in the midst of the video game crash of 1983, but it is also responsible for ending the large-scale recession in the video game industry that occurred all the way up to the year I was born, 1985. That same year, a very special console that's near and dear to my heart was released in North America. That console changed the game, no pun intended, due to its widespread success. You all know which console I'm referring to, but we'll get back to talking about that one in a little bit. The third generation saw the release of two Sega consoles, the SG-1000 and the Sega Mark III, or better known as the Master System, outside of Japan. The SG-1000 wasn't a huge seller, selling over 400,000 units, but it put Sega on the map as a console manufacturer, at least for a little while. Sega would then revamp their first console, the SG-1000, several times, eventually creating the Mark III/Master System, which was the third iteration of the SG-1000. The Master System was designed to be more powerful than a little-known console called the NES, but of course it paled in comparison when you look at sales numbers. The Master System ended up being the second best-selling console of the generation though, except for in Brazil. For some reason, the Brazilians loved this thing, and it continued to sell there well after the end of the third generation. Atari released the 7800 late into the generation as a successor to the Atari 5200. It is notable for being the first backward-compatible console without additional add-on hardware. Quite a few other lesser-known consoles, at least in my opinion, were released during this generation. This was still a time where it seemed like so many companies were trying to get a slice of that video game pie by releasing a console in hopes that it would compete with one company in particular that would soon dominate the home console market, at least until the fifth generation, when the 3D era led to another company donning the mantle of gaming royalty. The company that took over the game during the third generation is none other than Nintendo. Nintendo released the Famicom in 1983 and then as the Nintendo Entertainment System, or NES, in 1985. This console is arguably the console that saved home gaming consoles, and it helped revitalize the gaming industry in America following the video game crash. It was revolutionary in several ways. It pioneered a now standard business model of licensing third-party developers to produce and distribute games. It was the first home system to feature a controller with a directional pad, which became an industry standard. Thank you, Gunpei Yokoi. Rest in peace, and I hope I didn't butcher your name. And several groundbreaking games were released for it that would go on to become major household franchises in the future, such as Super Mario Bros., The Legend of Zelda, Metroid, and Mega Man. The third generation was a force to be reckoned with. Without it, we would not have PS5s, Xbox Series whatevers, or Nintendo Switches. This generation is also special to me because it was the generation that turned me into the gamer that I am today. That's why I decided to make this video ranking video game consoles beginning with this generation all the way to the present, because I don't have much experience with the first two generations other than the Atari 2600, which will make a special appearance a little later in the video. Let's get to the ranking. Let's go. Alright, a few caveats before we begin. I am only ranking consoles from Nintendo, Sega, Sony, Microsoft, and I have a couple of Atari consoles. I'm not ranking any other video game consoles because, frankly, to be honest, I don't have any experience with those. So if you're a fan of consoles like the ColecoVision, TurboGrafx, Commodore 64, Neo Geo, I'm sorry to say that I will not be ranking them in this video. I'm sorry. The opinions in this video stem from my experience with these games, like my memories, my nostalgia of these games, the gameplay mechanics, the controllers, various things like that. So it's okay if you disagree. I know some of you may have a connection with some of these consoles that I don't have. All I ask is that if you disagree, just please be civil down in the comments below. Don't be a jerk to anybody if they like a particular console and you don't. I'm so excited for this video because after my Mass Effect video, I've been wanting to make another tier maker video. I do have one console from the second generation, and that's the Atari 2600, which I'll get to in just a little bit. But first, let me show you a breakdown of my different tiers. I just decided to go with a standard tier for this one. So we got S tier, which is, I have the best memories of these particular consoles that's going to fall into that tier. I love these consoles. I feel like they did a really good job with various things like the game libraries, different things like that. Like, I just absolutely love these consoles, and I would recommend them to anybody to check out and play. Then we got the A tier, which they are really good, but they're just not, like, maybe I don't have as many fond memories of that console. Maybe I don't have as much experience with those consoles. Like, I feel like they're really good, but maybe with some more time, they might, move up to my S tier category. Then we have the B tier, which is kind of like the middle of the road. They're like, all right, or good consoles. Like, I enjoy them, but they're not my, one of my favorites. And then we have the C tier, which is not that these consoles are terrible, but I just feel like they're okay, in my opinion, based on my experience with them. And so, a few of these consoles may fall into that C tier. And then I have a fifth tier, need to play. These are consoles that I have either minimal experience with or I don't have any experience with at all. And so I would love to spend some more time with these consoles to see kind of in the future, maybe I can revisit this in a couple of years to see kind of in the future where these consoles will fall. So like I said, we're gonna kick things off with the Atari 2600 from the second generation. Where do I wanna put the Atari? I'm gonna put the Atari in my C tier. This was my first console I ever played, and I was too young though to remember it. I do remember my parents owning an Atari 2600, and my parents are not gamers. I don't know why we had this console. I don't know if it was because it was a trendy thing and my parents just decided to buy one, but I do remember playing it. I don't remember playing much of it though. Like, the graphics, are, let's just call a spade a spade. They are not that good, but this was the second generation. They were still figuring things out with home consoles. There were so many companies making consoles, so many different consoles out there with a bunch of crappy games. The Atari 2600 is known for having some crappy games like E.T. I think this might have been the first console though that I played Pac-Man on before I played it in the arcades. I'm not completely sure. So since I don't really remember, because I was probably like 3 years old when I played this console, since I don't remember a whole lot about the Atari 2600, it's gonna kick things off by going into my C tier. So let's move into the third generation. Finally, we're gonna kick things off with the SG-1000 from Sega. That one is gonna go into my need to play list. I've never played that console. My first Sega console was the Sega Genesis, so I have no connection to the SG-1000. I know about its history, putting Sega on the map, but that one is one that I hope to experience one day. All right, next up is the NES. What to say about this one? I gotta put this one S tier. So my first S tier console, the original NES. Now, this was the first console I remember playing. I got one for Christmas as a 5-year-old, Christmas 1990. It came with Super Mario Bros. And Duck Hunt, kind of the dual cartridge. My parents got me the Zapper. I also had Super Mario Bros. 3, I think, yes, included for Christmas as well, and I played the crap out of those 3 games. Yeah, I remember seeing it under the tree and opening it up. This was like kind of one of my fondest Christmas memories for receiving a console. And if the Atari 2600 was the first console that I played, this was really the first console that made me a gamer. Like, I played Super Mario Bros. And Super Mario Bros. 3 especially, like, non-stop for a very, very long time. I have so many memories of this console, but the first and the third game I owned, played them a lot. I remember playing them with my cousins before I owned them, and I was the youngest cousin of the group at the time, and so I was always stuck with playing as Luigi. You guys know all about that. If you were the younger sibling, the younger cousin, you ended up playing as Luigi. And you know, in the first game, you gotta wait forever until you get to play, until your cousin died. And my cousins, they were really good at the game, so I was waiting forever until I finally got my turn. So when I got my NES in 1990 as a 5-year-old, that was like one of the best things ever, because finally it was mine. I didn't have to worry about sharing with anybody else unless my cousins came over to play, and then I made them Luigi. But yeah, I played those two games a lot. Never beat them as a kid because I had no idea what I was doing, but that was the beauty of it. You just had fun just playing, getting as far as you could. Of course, I would get to later levels, you know, once I learned the secrets, like the warp tunnels and, you know, or the warp pipes, whatever they're called, you know, various things like that, how to skip ahead to future worlds. But yeah, but later, somehow, I don't know how it happened, but my parents got a hold of some NES games, and so I ended up with like ice hockey, Bart versus the Space Mutants, and so I played those two games a lot. I think I ended up having Ghostbusters 2 somehow, and I played that game a lot. Again, I had no clue what I was doing, but I just had so much fun with this console, and the games on this system, they were tough. You know, even as an adult now, I struggle with trying to beat some of these games. You know, you probably heard of the saying NES tough, and it's NES tough for a reason. That controller was just, that thing's a brick, man. Like, you can use that as a weapon. Like, that's when controllers were made so well that like they were practically indestructible. If you threw that controller, like I used the zapper as a toy, and it still would work whenever I would sit down to play Duck Hunt. But I remember running around with my friends and my cousins, you know, using the zapper as a gun. You know, who can never forget blowing in the cartridges, you know? And I remember at one point I had a shortage in, I don't own my original NES anymore. I would love to get another NES console, but I remember my power cable started not working properly. And I remember, and this was probably a bad idea, just like blowing in the cartridges, but I remember putting aluminum foil on it, and then it would work then, you know. We would blow into the cartridge and then pop that bad boy in, flip the top, oh, you know, after pressing it down, turn on that power button, and just enjoy like so many memories. So I had to put the NES in my S tier. All right, enough talking about the NES. I can do a whole video about the NES. Ooh, video idea. But let's move on to the next console. The next console is the Sega Master System, and that one's gonna go into my need to play tier as well. I've never played the Master System. The Master System is probably one of the retro gaming consoles that I really want to play one day. I have a few buddies that make YouTube videos, and they sometimes feature games from the Master System, and they seem like so much fun, so cool. And so I hate that I missed out on that console as a kid, and so maybe one day I'll sit down and play some Master System games, but for right now, that one's need to play. All right, the next one is the Atari 7800. That one's also need to play. Outside of the 2600, I've never played another Atari console since. All right, let's move on to the 4th generation of consoles. So that kind of wraps up the 3rd generation. All right, next up is the Sega console I did play, and that was the Sega Genesis. Before I rank it, for some reason, my parents got me a Sega Genesis, and I don't know why. After having the NES, you would expect naturally for them to get me a Super Nintendo, because to parents, you know, every console back then was a Nintendo. But my parents got me a Sega Genesis. I kind of want to ask them maybe one day, like, why they got me a Genesis. So where to put this one? I think I'm gonna put the Genesis in the A tier. I have a lot of memories of the Genesis and a lot of fun memories, but I just feel like it's not on that same level as the NES. But the Genesis was probably the first console I fully remember playing. I remember playing the NES, have a lot of memories, but the Genesis, I was kind of older then. By the time I got one, I didn't get a Sega Genesis until I was about 9 or 10. And so at that point, I started to really remember playing games for this console. This was the console that I kind of moved away from platforming games pretty much for forever. I'm not a huge fan of platforming games nowadays. I know a lot of you love them. Don't hate me for that. I do enjoy a good platformer now and again, you know, but I'm not a huge fan of them. So the Genesis, I started moving into sports games, and I have so many memories of playing like World Series baseball for the Sega Genesis. I was playing baseball at the time myself in real life, and so I loved renting World Series baseball whenever I could. I didn't own a whole lot of Genesis games. I had Sonic the Hedgehog 2, so I guess that's a platformer with speed. And I loved Sonic. I loved how bright and kind of colorful he was and how cool he was. And it was so funny, you know, being present during, you know, the console wars of the 90s between Sega and Nintendo. You know, Sega was always marketed as being the cool console, so I don't know if that's why my parents got it for me, but I really did enjoy the Sega Genesis. I got into fighting games on this console. Oh my goodness. Street Fighter 2, Mortal Kombat 1 and 2. I did own the first Mortal Kombat and Street Fighter 2, and I played those two games a lot. My parents didn't play video games a whole lot. Like when we would go out to places like an arcade, my parents might occasionally hop in and play some. But I remember my mom in particular playing Street Fighter 2 with myself and my sisters. Well, at least one of my sisters, because my other sister wasn't born in like 1997, so I don't know if she has a whole lot of experience with the Sega Genesis. But I remember my mom playing with me and my sister Street Fighter 2 and actually enjoying it and having a good time. She might have played some Mortal Kombat 2, but my memories, I remember Street Fighter 2 a lot. And so yeah, I remember playing the fighting games, the sports games on this console. And those two things, those two genres kind of took over my life for a very long time before I came back to, you know, more story driven, you know, third person type video games. I still play a lot of sports games nowadays, as you know, if you're subscribed to my channel. But yeah, the Genesis kind of started that with like World Series baseball. I remember playing Road Rash on the Genesis. I used to love that game, used to love renting that game. And that's something I really miss too, man, like going out to Blockbuster and places like that and just renting games over the weekend, and you only got like a couple of days, 2 or 3 days, maybe 5 to 7, depending on the video rental place, and just, you know, spending your whole weekend trying to grind and you know, play as much as that game as you could before you returned it. I had the later version of Genesis, which is the one in this picture. I didn't have the big, you know, the bigger one with like the kind of black and gray silver red circle where you put the cartridge in. I had that sleek black one and I loved it, and I loved the controller. I just had the regular ABC controller. I think I rented or owned Batman Forever a lot back in the day as well, and I enjoyed playing that game. But yeah, Sega Genesis, A tier, because I have so many fond memories of that console, and it really kicked off my addiction to sports games and kind of my love, at least for a long time, my love of fighting games. All right, we're gonna take a look at the first handheld console on here, and that's the Game Boy, that original green screen, black stuff, words, you know, images, whatever on the screen. On the Game Boy, I'm gonna put B tier. I'm not a huge fan of handhelds. I'm gonna go ahead and just get that out, you know, get that out there right now. So a lot of these other handhelds that's gonna be ranked by me are gonna probably go into that need to play category. I preferred the home consoles. I've always have, but I remember when the Game Boy came out and a lot of people at school had them, and I just thought it was so cool to kind of play games on the go. And I think the main reason why I don't care for handhelds, the games were different. Like I was kind of expecting, up until the Nintendo Switch, I was kind of expecting to play the same games that I can play on the home console on the handheld console and just have those games to play on the go. But the games were different. They had some of the same franchises on the handheld consoles, but they made other games for those franchises, and they were different. They seemed a lot more limited than their home console, you know, kind of counterparts or whatever. And so I never really got fully into handheld gaming, but I remember when the Game Boy came out and a lot of kids at school having them, and I thought it was so cool to be able to play video games on the go. I never owned one, but I did play the Game Boy a lot when I was a kid, you know, just, you know, whenever my friends had one, I would borrow it from them at school, you know, when we had time, you know, free time. And just, I remember the phenomenon behind the Game Boy when it came out, you know, just so many people were so hyped for that console, and like a simple game like Tetris kind of put it on the map, you know, and that was crazy. And then the Pokemon craze, like I remember, you know, kids, you know, I was never big into Pokemon, but I remember when Red and Blue came out in America, kids going crazy for those games. And then of course Yellow followed. And so I got into some Pokemon on the Game Boy. You know, my friends owned it. You know, I would play a little bit, you know, whenever I can with them. But I don't have a whole lot of, nostalgic ties to the Game Boy. Game Boy is B tier for me. It's really cool for what it is. All right, we're gonna take a look at another console, and that is, make sure I get the right one. Yeah, that is the Sega Game Gear. I'm gonna also put the Game Gear in the B tier as well. I remember when that one came out and I kind of wanted a Game Gear more so than a Game Boy. It was because it was in color. But I heard, these things like drain the crap out of your batteries, but the games look so much better on the Game Gear than the Game Boy. The Sega Game Gear, I don't have a whole lot of memories with it, but I did play it a little bit. So the Game Gear, B tier for me. Next up, the Super Nintendo. That one is going to go A tier for me. And I know some of you were like, the Super Nintendo is superior to the NES. It took all the NES games and made them better with all the 16-bit glory. And I do have to say the Super Nintendo games look beautiful, just like the Sega Genesis. Like, I love the sprites in those games. Like, I feel like those two consoles, the games are timeless. Like, you can play them nowadays, even give them to a kid who's used to the modern day video games, and they would still enjoy them. Like, the games look good. They play really, really well, but I don't have a whole lot of nostalgic ties to the SNES. And even though I enjoyed my Sega Genesis, I kind of wish I got to experience the Super Nintendo more as a kid. The only time I got to experience it was over at my cousin's house whenever I would spend the night with them. Like, my cousins on both sides of the family had Super Nintendo. I was one of the odd ones that had a Sega Genesis. And so I don't have a whole lot of, childhood ties to the Super Nintendo. I am now, as an adult, I am getting into, more and more Super Nintendo games, and I'm really, really enjoying playing that console and playing games that I missed out on as a kid. But again, I didn't play it much as a kid, and so that's why I did not get into my S tier. I don't have the memories of it like I do with the NES. But some of the memories I do have of the Super Nintendo, Turtles in Time, I used to play that over one of my cousin's house every time I spent the night over there. We would play Turtles in Time, and it was so cool because I love the Turtles arcade game. I don't even think I played Turtles in Time in the arcade. I might have played it a little bit, but I remember the Turtles 2 game more so in the arcade, and it was so cool to get to play an arcade game at home without going out to the arcade. And so playing Turtles in Time and experiencing it on that Super Nintendo, playing Super Mario World as a kid. I still think Super Mario Bros. 3 is better than Super Mario World. I'm sure a lot of you out there will probably disagree with me, but again, I don't have the nostalgic ties to Super Mario World like I do Super Mario Bros. 3, but I did play Super Mario World over my cousin's house. I thought the addition of Yoshi was kind of cool, how you got to ride on his back, and then you can use him to eat things, and then he kind of served as like a shield to you as well, because if you run into something, he would run off, but you wouldn't, like lose health or lose a life or anything like that. So I have fun memories of playing Super Mario World as a kid. Super Nintendo, I wish I had, had more experience with it as a kid, because that one would probably fall in my S tier. That's an amazing console, and I can't wait to experience more of it. All right, we're kicking off the 5th generation of video game consoles with the Sega Saturn, and that one's gonna go in my need to play. I don't have any experience with the Sega Saturn. After the Genesis, I didn't touch another Sega console until the Dreamcast, and so the Saturn, no experience with it. It is in the need to play list. Next up, the PS1. This console put Sony on the map, and they kind of took over gaming from Nintendo to a certain extent. They kind of dominate the market nowadays. They got some of the best-selling consoles out there. I mean, Nintendo still has carved their own, kind of niche in the market, but Sony, the PS1, it all started with the PS1. So the PS1 for me is going to be A tier. I did not own a PS1 as a kid, and so it's kind of like the Super Nintendo is stuck in that A tier. Right now, I'm rediscovering games from that console that I missed out on as a kid, and I'm so happy that I'm getting to experience the games, because the PlayStation, the PS1 is a good console. There's a lot of good games for that console that I missed out on as a kid that I'm happy to finally play as an adult. And so again, it's one of those that if I had some experience with it as a kid, it would go in that S tier. I remember being blown away. I had a friend that owned a PS1, and when I was spending that over at his house, that was like the only time I got to play it. I think one of my cousins had one too, and I was spending the night with him as well. But I remember being blown away with the 3D graphics when I first saw a PS1. I was like, this is the best gaming's gonna ever get. And now, of course, nowadays, you know, gaming looks a whole lot better than those blocky kind of polygonal shapes. But back then, I was like just in awe at how amazing those games looked on the PS1. And I wanted a PS1, never got one. I'll tell you the console that I had during this generation in just a little bit, but I can't even fully remember the games that I played as a kid whenever I would go over my friend's house to play the PS1. I think I played some Tony Hawk on the PS1. I used to love Tony Hawk. That was a lot of fun. I wasn't even into skateboarding, but it was so cool getting to, you know, play that game and learn a lot about skateboarding by doing the different tricks. And I remember when I first saw the dual analog controller, and I was like, you know, what is this? I'm so used to the D-pad. This is a whole new way to experience video games, because you get to move in a lot of games, you know, more so nowadays, move your character with the left stick and kind of control the camera sometimes with the right stick. That was crazy. No, you're no longer going from left to right pretty much on the screen. You get to move up and down and go deep into the background. And yeah, like I remember the PS1 when you cut it on and the loud noise it would make as it's reading your disc, and that startup chime would sound, and it was like, oh man, it sent chills down my spine. Man, I'm so angry that I did not get to experience the PS1 and the Super Nintendo much as a kid. Like, those two would definitely, I feel, be S tier. Metal Gear Solid, the first game, I remember playing that one when I was younger and hiding in boxes and stuff like that, and sneaking around. Like, that was such a cool experience. Resident Evil, though. In particular, Resident Evil 3, because I missed out on the first two Resident Evils when I was younger. I remember going over to a friend's house and playing Resident Evil 3 with him, like kind of trading off. And I remember Nemesis chasing after us. And I think we got to the part, and I don't know how far it is into the game. It might not be very far. This was still a time period where I wasn't beating games all the way through. But I remember getting to this like helicopter part where you were like kind of in a ring of fire and you had to face off against Nemesis and like, you know, weaken him or whatever so you could escape. And I remember at least getting to that part of the game. Again, I don't know how far into the game that is, but Resident Evil 3 kind of kicked off my eventual love for the Resident Evil games, and that was with the PS1 console. So PS1, A tier for me. It might be S tier for you. If I had more experience, it would definitely be S tier. Up next is the Nintendo Virtual Boy. I really want to put this below a C tier, but the lowest tier I have is C, so I'm putting it there. That console was weird. I had a friend that owned one, so I played a little bit of it. Everything was red, first of all, and it hurt my head to put that thing on. I remember playing, I think it was Mario Tennis, a Mario Tennis game on it when I was a kid, and I just, I did not like it. I did not like it at all, and I almost didn't include this one on the list, but I was like, it's a Nintendo console, it's its own separate entity, and I technically have experience with it, so I was like, why not? But if I could put this one below a C tier, this one would probably be the only console on this list that would go below a C tier. But since C is my lowest one, I'm putting the Virtual Boy there. I don't care for that console. I don't care to ever own one or look at that thing again because of how much it hurt my head when I played it for like 15 to 20 minutes at a time. The multiple times I did give it a try, and I don't even know why I gave it a try multiple times. Virtual Boy, you can go in the trash. Let's move on. All right, next up is the Sega Genesis Nomad. I had no idea this thing existed, so it's gonna go in the need to play. I never played that. After the Game Gear, I didn't know Sega had made another handheld console. That was on the need to play list. I'll probably never play that one, to be honest, because again, I don't care much for handhelds, but it's on this list, and so it will go into the need to play. All right, up next is the Game Boy Color. I'm gonna put that one in the A tier. This was kind of the last handheld that I really have a whole lot of experience with. So a lot of the other handhelds that's left on this list is gonna go into that need to play category. But this one was like the Game Boy done better because it's in color. I'm sorry, color is better. You know, seeing the Pokemon games in color, and I wasn't a huge Pokemon fan, but seeing those games in color, that was really cool. Like, it took the Game Boy, that phenomenon that was the Game Boy, and it did it better with the colorized version. And so I gotta put the Game Boy Color higher than the Game Boy, and so it's gonna go into my A tier. I accidentally skipped the Nintendo 64. I should have talked about that one before the Game Boy Color. So there goes my, you know, me trying to do these in order of release date. But the Nintendo 64 was the console that I owned during this generation. I did not own the PS1. The 64, I'm gonna put it in the B tier. Even though I owned it, you guys are probably like, why did he put that in the B tier below the PS1? I felt like the cartridges were outdated by then, the cartridge system that Nintendo employed, but I still have a whole lot of memories with the 64, and I'm also putting it in B tier because of that controller, that weird Nintendo 64 controller. Of course, you know, back in the day, I got used to playing with that controller, but now trying to go back and play with that controller, it is ridiculous. It is crazy, but I have a whole lot of fun memories with the 64. It was my first console that I started playing more adventure, storytelling type games. Like, this console got me into Star Wars because I played Shadows of the Empire as a kid. I played that game all the way through. I beat it. It was one of the earliest games that I ever beat on a console. And so that got me into Star Wars. I ended up watching the movies later, and then the rest was history, kind of with my Star Wars love. And so I'm really fond of the Nintendo 64 for that reason. I didn't really play Super Mario 64 a whole lot, but that was really cool, getting to see Mario in 3D and getting to run around and control the camera, even though the controls were crappy for controlling the camera. Sports games galore on this console. I played Kobe Bryant and NBA Courtside. I love that game. That became kind of the first basketball game outside of NBA Jam that I played a lot on the Genesis. I forgot to mention that earlier, but that was the first like kind of simulation basketball game that I played, and kind of got me into playing basketball games. After, for the most part, up until this point, I had really only played baseball video games. I would get into football video games a little bit later, but yeah, NBA, Kobe Bryant and NBA Courtside, I love that game, played that game a lot. That was one of the few games that I owned on the 64. What else did I play on this console with that crazy controller? Oh, the multiplayer games. That was really fun, like having sleepovers and getting three of your friends in addition to yourself getting to play on the console at one time. I remember playing, you know, the Star Wars racer game on the 64. That was really cool, getting to play that with friends. GoldenEye, like, I can't forget GoldenEye. Oh man, I might have made a mistake putting this console in the B tier. I might have should have put it in the A tier, but playing GoldenEye was a lot of fun with my friends. We played the crap out of that game. GoldenEye was so much fun. That was my first experience kind of with first-person shooter type games, which is a genre I'm not a super fan of nowadays, but GoldenEye was a lot of fun with your friends. I played a little Perfect Dark. I played that one more so when I was older, but that one was a lot of fun as well. Yeah, the 64, a lot of memories. But I got to dock some points for having a cartridge when the PlayStation had CDs and for that controller. So yeah, it's gonna go in the B tier for me. All right, that brings us to the 6th generation of consoles, and we're gonna kick that one off with the Sega Dreamcast. So after the Genesis, this was the only other Sega console that I owned. And I'm gonna place the Dreamcast in the B tier. I feel like the Dreamcast is underrated, and I hate that it's kind of known for being, you know, having that tainted legacy of being the last console that Sega produced. I felt like it was treated unfairly, and now looking back in hindsight, I wish I had enjoyed my Dreamcast a little bit more. The Dreamcast was kind of my bridging the gap console between my Nintendo 64 and my original Xbox. But I did get a Dreamcast for Christmas. It got me into the 2K games. I remember playing the first couple of NBA 2K games, like 2K, 2K1. I think I even played 2K2, you know, all the ones with Allen Iverson on the cover. And so that kind of became my new basketball simulation video game of choice, you know, series of choice. And it still is to this day, although I don't really play 2K a whole lot anymore, you know, after the last couple of years. But That kind of transitioned me away from the Kobe Bryant games from the 64. This was my first console that played disc. And so that was really cool, getting to own a Dreamcast and getting to experience that after not getting to experience that with the 64. With my parents flip-flopping back and forth between Nintendo and Sega back then. I guess, I don't know. I guess they went with what was cheapest. I don't really know. Tomb Raider: The Last Revelation was one of the earliest games I remember beating as well. And I had that game, and I still own my original Dreamcast. And at some point, my Dreamcast started to short out, and so like I think it was overheating, and so I would be able to play a game for 10 minutes, and I would try to make sure I save or whatever, because after 10 minutes it would cut off and start over again, and so then I would play for 10 more minutes. And so I remember getting through The Last Revelation like that, playing it for 10 minutes at a time, trying to blitz through the game as much as possible so I can save. And so that was kind of an odd experience, but it was also kind of fun. The VMU on the Sega Dreamcast was so cool. The little memory card unit, how it would say messages and it would display things for you depending on the game that you were playing. Like, that was really awesome. Like, that was probably I didn't really care for memory cards and stuff like that, and I'm kind of glad they went away. But the VMU was really cool, and I used to love seeing the little words and displays and digital stuff on them. I don't understand, though, for the life of me, why they have the stupid cord coming out of the bottom of the controller. That drives me crazy. That was such an odd design choice. Like, because, every other controller that's wired has it coming out of the top. That was weird. But yeah, the Dreamcast B tier, it was almost A for me. But I don't have a whole lot of experience with it, even though I did, own that console. And this one that I'm trying to go back nowadays as an adult and experience some games that I missed out on. The PlayStation 2. So this was kind of the first generation where I eventually owned both Sony products and Xbox products, and I kind of continued that trend, up until the present. Like, I've owned a PS2, PS3, PS4, PS5, and I've owned every single, Xbox console that came out. But I did, even though the PS2 came out before the Xbox, I did get an Xbox before PS2, and then later I convinced my parents to get me a PS2. I was actually shocked that I ended up having 3 consoles from this generation that I owned. I did not own a GameCube, which I'll talk about in a little bit. The PS2. Best-selling console, I think, home console of all time. For me, though, the PS2 is, I'm going to put B tier for me. And I know a lot of you love the PS2. It's kind of like the Dreamcast for me. I have some experience with it, but it wasn't my primary console. Like Xbox, when I got my Xbox, which I'll talk about in a little bit, it took over my life. And I'm not just saying like I'm an Xbox fanboy. I do enjoy PlayStation games. I do enjoy PlayStation consoles. I mean, I was praising the PS1 earlier, even though I don't have a whole lot of experience with it. So I'm not one of those type of people. I play both of the consoles, but I typically get the Xbox because I like the offsetting analog sticks, the offsetting sticks. I don't like the sticks side by side as much like with the PlayStation controller. So starting with this generation, once I got my Xbox first, I typically buy an Xbox console first. And that's where I do primarily play, all of my games. Because a lot of the games that come out, they come out for the PlayStation and the Xbox. And so I primarily game on my Xbox. My PlayStation is used for the PlayStation exclusives. PlayStation got some of the best exclusives nowadays. And so I usually buy a PlayStation console for that reason. But like I said, my parents bought me a Dreamcast, an Xbox, and then a PS2. And I do have a lot of experience with the PS2. Man, some of the games that I played on it, like Fatal Frame. Let's talk Fatal Frame. I remember renting that as a kid when I was in high school, and I took it back the next day. That game terrified me so much. You go around taking pictures of spirits. It's set in Japanese culture, and so you play as this girl, and you go through a house looking for, like a mansion, looking for your missing brother, and you got to take pictures of these ghosts, and you use the camera as a weapon because there's multiple ghost types. Like, some are hidden, some vanish, so they kind of walk by and then they disappear, so you got to be quick with the camera. And then some are attacking that has, they have health and everything, and you use the camera to defeat them by, charging up your shots. Really cool gameplay mechanics. Like, that was my first kind of experience with horror games, which I love nowadays. I did beat Fatal Frame in the future, so I went back to it. I had to beat it with my boy Tokes, We stayed up all night one night. It might have been over the course of multiple nights. I don't know. But I do remember us staying up late, trading off, playing through that game. And I played the second one as well. I've never beaten the second one. I really need to get back into that series. That's a really good horror series. But what else could I say about the PlayStation 2? I mean, the PlayStation 2 and the Xbox games kind of overlap for me because a lot of the games were released on both consoles. But Kingdom Hearts, I got into the Kingdom Hearts series with the PS2. Devil May Cry, my friend Tokes got me into the Devil May Cry series. And so I remember playing through the first game and the second game on my PS2. X-Files, Resist or Serve, that's a hidden gem game. That's kind of like Resident Evil 2. I really enjoyed that game when I was younger. This was the generation that I really started to get into those games with stories and those action adventure type games and even horror games. And so the PS2, B tier for me, because I kind of preferred playing my original Xbox. All right, the Game Boy Advance is going to go into need to play for me. I told you I don't have a whole lot of experience with handhelds, and so I've never played a Game Boy Advance, so there you go. I may never play that one, but I've heard the GBA has some pretty cool games, so never say never. But as of right now, I don't think I'll ever play it, but it is on my need to play list. Got a good bit of consoles on my need to play list. That's about to change. There's only a few more, pretty much the handhelds, that are going to go on my need to play list. The rest of the consoles, though, I have experienced, except for the Wii U. We'll go ahead and spoil that now, but we'll get to that later. Nintendo GameCube. That one is going to be A tier for me. That's another one I didn't own as a kid that in hindsight now, I kind of wish I had more experience with. I enjoy the GameCube nowadays. Like Mario Kart Double Dash, that's probably one of my favorite. No, that's probably my second favorite outside of Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, of course. I mean, that's got to be your favorite Mario Kart game. But Double Dash is probably my second favorite Mario Kart game. That was a lot of fun. I love the two driver, the two people in the cart, mechanic. I wish they would bring that mechanic back. That was really cool. One person drives, the other one controls the items and the use of items, and you can pass items back and forth. Like if you've never played that Mario Kart game, I highly recommend experiencing that game. But I'm slowly getting into the GameCube. Luigi's Mansion is such a fun game. I missed that on the GameCube. That controller is really well made. I don't really care for the C button and how it's like a little stick on the right side, but in a way it kind of works as like a dual analog type controller with the two sticks. The C button is just weird, but the rest of the controller is really cool. I love the way that the shoulder buttons are indented, and so they fit pretty nicely, in your hand. I always thought the GameCube was weird when I was a kid. That's why I never played it with the little mini disc, but I really enjoy the GameCube nowadays, especially getting to experience Mario Kart Double Dash and Luigi's Mansion, and I can't wait to play more games from the GameCube. Just like the Dreamcast, I kind of feel like that console is very underrated. So if you haven't given it a chance, I highly recommend checking out a GameCube. I own one now, and so I'm really excited to play some more of the GameCube games. I heard the Mario sports games are really good on this console, and so I need to, check those out and play those in the near future. So far, I only have one S tier console. That's about to change, but I only have one as of right now. So let's get into the original Xbox. I was debating about putting this one in my S tier, but I'm going to put that one in my A tier as well. This was the first Microsoft console. I took a chance, on getting that before a PS2. Everybody at school was talking about the PS2, but I like the look of the Xbox, the original Xbox. And so, I got my parents to get me one of those for Christmas, and I was like, the Xbox is the newest thing, so I was like, I want to have the newest thing, instead of the PS2, because the PS1 had already existed, and plus I didn't have experience with PS1, and so I went to the the Dreamcast, and then after that went into the Xbox. I was like, let's give this new console maker a shot, because I mean, Microsoft made PCs, like, I figured they knew what they were doing, and I was right. I liked the original Xbox. Again, I love the thumbsticks being offset. Once I picked up that Xbox controller, even though that controller is pretty huge, I fell in love with it. I have a lot of experience with, the original Xbox. A lot of great games that I played for it over the years that just I still love nowadays to this day. Harry Potter Quidditch World Cup. I remember playing that and getting to play Quidditch on a video game. In a video game was just so much fun. Quidditch Champions, of course, kind of taking that, have taken that to the next level. But I played Quidditch World Cup so much when I was younger, and the Xbox was kind of my transition console, through high school, pretty much till I, started college and various things like that until I got the 360. But yeah, a lot of fun memories with the original Xbox. Halo and Halo 2. Never played the single player campaign for those games, but I played a lot of the multiplayer with friends. Like, that was really after GoldenEye, that was really a time where I got into FPSs for a while, and it was so cool system linking different Xboxes together to get to play those games. Like, oh man, like kids today getting to play on the internet, you have no idea what it was like back then, not having, those types of capabilities to play with your friends. Like, you had to be, pretty much in the same location at least, but system linking allowed us to be on different TVs, so we would have two people on a console on different TVs instead of all four of us on the same console. And oh man, that was so much fun. I remember in college playing with my buddy Tokes and a few other my friends, like my roommate Dennis and my buddy Jeff, and we would have like Halo parties. And I wasn't very good at Halo. Like I said, I wasn't super into FPSs, and so we would have some laughs, some drinks and stuff, and my friends, they were like drink quite a bit, and so that was like the only time that I could beat them, because I was like younger, and so I wasn't 21 yet. So I was like, well, it was usually at Dennis in my my apartment that I had with him, but wherever it was, I would be like the designated driver or whatever, and so I would be sober and they wouldn't be, and I would destroy them finally in those games. Oh man, such fun memories. So I almost put the Xbox in the S tier, but I'm gonna stick it in the A tier. And KOTOR. Oh man, Jade Empire. This is when I started getting into BioWare games. KOTOR 2. Oh, I love those games to this day. Siberia is an adventure game that I got into. I love that series, especially the first game. Man, the original Xbox had some bangers for me. But it's gonna stand at A tier. All right, the 7th generation of consoles. We're gonna kick it off with the Nintendo DS. I can't remember if my sister had a 3DS or a DS. I can't remember. So I don't think I have experience with the DS. I think she had a 3DS. She'll probably correct me if I'm wrong. So I'm gonna put the DS in the need to play tier, because I don't feel like I have experience with it. I did play her DS, whichever one she had. She might have had an original one. I don't know. But whichever one she had, I do have experience playing it. All right, the PSP. It's also gonna go into need to play. I don't have any experience with the PSP. I know a lot of people love that handheld console for a variety of reasons. That's kind of one of the handhelds that I've never played that I would be probably the most interested in playing. I've heard a lot of good things about the PSP. That brings us to the Xbox 360. This is the Xbox console that's S tier for me. This was the first console I bought with my own money, and so that's why this console has a special place in my heart. Just like the NES. I mean, I know I didn't buy the NES with my own money. I was 5 years old, but I was in college, and so I bought the 360 myself, and I love that console. That is probably my favorite Xbox console. The Series X that I own is giving it a run for its money, as far as being my favorite Xbox console, but I got nothing but love for the Xbox 360 because I got to experience one of my favorite video game trilogy of all time on this console, and I'm talking about Mass Effect. Y'all know, if you've been following my channel for a while now, you know how much I love the Mass Effect trilogy, my favorite video game series of all time. Got to experience all three of those gems of a game on the Xbox 360. And this generation was kind of the generation that took 3D gaming to the next level, you know, kind of bridging the gap more so to what, you know, the games look like nowadays. And I played the 360 so much, so many, you know, just fond memories of the 360 in college. You know, this was the first time I didn't have to, you know, my parents didn't tell me to go to bed and stop playing video games. I could play it whenever I wanted to. I was living with a roommate. I was on my own. And so I played the 360 a lot, probably more so than I should have early on in college. I probably should have studied a little bit more when I was in college instead of playing my 360. And the 360, you know, all the other consoles before that, I still experienced a lot of other things, had a lot of other hobbies. And I'm not saying I don't have any hobbies nowadays, but starting with the 360, I feel like that's when I really, truly, absolutely became a gamer. Like, it really did take over my life more so. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. You know, my wife might think sometimes it's a bad thing, because I do play a lot of video games nowadays, but I kind of do it as a side hustle now with this YouTube channel, you know, so it's a good thing. But oh man, countless hours I put into the Xbox 360, man. Like, I'm just sitting here just thinking about just all these happy thoughts with that console. It just brings a smile to my face. I got to experience other BioWare games on the 360. Dragon Age, I love the Dragon Age games, the first one in particular. And so, you know, that was my first time experiencing those games, was on the 360. I got into the Fallout games on the 360. LA Noire, I played on the 360 for the first time. Like, that game blew me away with how they did all the face scans and they did all the motion capture, and it looked like just watching a movie in video game form, and playing through that story was so much fun. So yeah, Xbox 360, S tier for me. I love that console. All right, the PS3 is next. I'm gonna put the PS3 in the A tier. Just like always, like I've said it earlier, I got the PS3 after I got the Xbox 360. It was the second console that I bought with my own money, and I do enjoy the PS3. This is where I kind of got into a lot of the PlayStation exclusives, those action adventure games that we love so much nowadays, like The Last of Us. I played on PS3. I got into the Uncharted games. Oh, the Uncharted games. I love those games. I got into those with the PS3. I've modded my PS3. And so I got to, you know, experience NCAA Football 14 with the College Football Revamped mod for the first time on my PS3. Even though I originally owned the game for the Xbox 360, I sold it, got a PS3 version of it, and then modded my PS3 to where I could do the College Football Revamped mod. But then I eventually moved that to the PC, and that's how I play college football. Well, I don't really play NCAA Football 14 anymore now that I got the new college football game, but yeah, that's how I got to experience it. But I modded my PS3 so I could play it. And there's so many other awesome PS3 games that I want to play that I remember playing demos for on my PS3, like Folklore. I finally own that game. It's on my shelf behind me. I can't wait to finally sit down and experience that game. All right, the Nintendo Wii. I'm going to put the Wii in the B tier. I loved the Wii when it first came out. I didn't own one until later. But I had friends that had the Wii, and I used to love playing the Wii sports games, like the bowling, the baseball. They were so much fun. I remember playing the Deca Sports games. And I think it was the Deca Sports that had the curling game, and I loved that. It was so much fun getting to play some games with friends that were like that. Outside of that, though, the motion controls, like, I just don't really care for the motion controls that much now that I'm older. They worked really well for the sports games, but other games I don't really care to play with that Wii remote. I don't really care for the Wii remote, and Nintendo is always trying some sort of weird gimmick and various things with their consoles, but the sports games, they were awesome. That's why I had to put the Wii in the B tier. Outside of that, I never really played many Wii games outside of the sports games. And it was cool getting to make your Mii. I think that was the first time you could do that. and then you get to use your Mii in the sports games. That was really fun. The setup, like I own a Wii now. The setup is the problem nowadays. Like if I don't have it kind of set up as like one of my main consoles, having to, you know, put it on this little docking thing, put the little bar, a sensor bar that reads the remote, plug that in, and, you know, get that all set up and stuff like that. And I hate using the band on the Wiimote, and I've almost taken out a few people in my time by slinging that remote around and then losing my grip on it and stuff like that. I feel like, and you could get a controller for the Wii, and I guess I probably need to do that because I do want to experience some of like the Mario. Which Mario is on the Wii? Is it Galaxy or Sunshine? Whichever Mario Brothers game that's on the Wii, I do want to experience that one day, and so I'll probably have to get the controller for it. I know old folks in, you know, retirement homes and stuff and nursing homes, they play Wiis, and I know it's like one of the best selling consoles. I think it was the best selling console of this generation. It sold a lot, but outside of the sports games, I don't really care for the Wii remote, and that's why I put it in the B tier. It's kind of like that Nintendo 64 controller, man. Nintendo has had some weird controllers, which is crazy because the NES and the Super Nintendo controllers are like chef's kiss, like mwah. But then, and the GameCube, I forgot about GameCube, but then the 64 and the Wii, like weird, and the Wii U as well, even though I don't have experience with the Wii U, like the gamepad just seems kind of odd. So yeah, the Wii, B tier for me. All right, we're almost done. We got 2 more generations left, so let's get into the 8th generation of consoles. All right, we're kicking it off with the Nintendo 3DS. I think this was the one that my sister owned and not the DS, but whichever one it is, whether it's the DS or the 3DS, one of them is in the need to play. One of them I'm putting in the B tier. I remember playing, I think, was it Playground for this? And I love that game. Playing the different playground games like dodgeball and stuff like that. That was a lot of fun. My sister owned that game, and so I don't have a whole lot of experience with either the 3DS or the 3D or the DS or whatever it's called, but whichever one it is, I'm putting it in the B tier. All right, next up is the PlayStation Vita. Where is it? That one's gonna go in need to play. I've never played the PlayStation Vita. Don't have any experience with it. All right, the Wii U is another need to play, and I think that might be, oh no, there's one more need to play that I'm gonna put here. Man, I got quite a bit need to play. But the Wii U is the only Nintendo console that I've never experienced. I've never played, never touched a Wii U. I know Mario Kart 8 was released for it, but then we got the deluxe version with the Switch, and I've played the deluxe version on the Switch. And there are a few games that I would probably go back and play on the Wii U, like, you know, the Mario stuff. I want to have a full set of Nintendo consoles one day, just like Sony and Xbox. I can't find my original PS2, so I'm going to have to buy another PS2 to complete my Sony set. But I have all the Xbox consoles. I'm missing one Sony console. And then, of course, I got to go back and get, you know, the earlier Nintendo consoles and then the Wii U as well. So one day I probably will play the Wii U. I'm just not in a hurry to play it, if that makes sense. Okay, so this generation, the PS4 and the Xbox One, I have a good amount of experience with these consoles, but this is the time period where I'm kind of pushing 30. And so I went back to school to become a teacher after doing music in my 20s, trying to pursue that and working like retail jobs. I finally got to the point where, you know, it was like, if we don't get signed, well, the band ended up splitting up before we even got really fully to that point. But it was getting to the point where, you know, we were, you know, different bandmates were getting married and having kids and various things. And I started dating my wife around this generation as well. And so I kind of didn't game as much as I do now because I was in school, you know, trying to become a teacher. I had to do a lot of different things with that. And so the PS4, I'm going to probably put it in the B tier. A lot of great games on the PS4 that I experienced, but I just didn't play the PS4 a whole lot. This was a time period where I wasn't gaming a lot. I just don't have the nostalgic ties to the PS4 and even the Xbox One, which I'm about to touch on a little bit. But I got the PS4, of course, for the exclusives. And I kind of got back into playing the PS4 kind of towards the end of the generation, right before the PS5 came out. And so I got to experience exclusives like Uncharted 4, my favorite Uncharted game. I mean, I love the first 3 on the PS3, but the PS4 took Uncharted to the next level. Like, it was such an epic and awesome conclusion to Nathan Drake's story. If we don't ever get another Uncharted game, like, I really enjoyed Uncharted 4. Horizon Zero Dawn, I got into that series with the PS4. I really enjoyed playing that first game on the PS4. The Resident Evil 2 remake, so much fun. I love that game. That's my favorite Resident Evil game now. It's my favorite remake that they've done. I love Resident Evil 4 as well, which I played earlier on like the PS2. But the Resident Evil 2 remake was just so good. So good. Like, I like the Resident Evil 4 remake as well. I still need to play the Resident Evil 3 remake. I haven't played that yet. It is on my shelf behind me. I do own it. But the Resident Evil 2 remake it's just so good. So PS4, good console, but it's B tier for me just because I haven't played it a whole lot. All right, the Xbox One is going to go into the B tier as well for me. Again, like I said earlier with the PS4, didn't game a whole lot during that time period, but the Xbox One I do have a decent amount of experience with. I first experienced Skyrim on the Xbox One, and so I love Skyrim. Of course, I play it now more so on my Series X, but I got into that game on the Xbox One. A lot of the sports games like Madden and 2K, I have a lot of experience with on the Xbox One. I kind of got into Madden a little bit during the PS2, Xbox 360 era, but I really fully got into Madden with the Xbox One. And now Madden is usually a staple on my channel, and so it's because of the Xbox One that I got into Madden. And so I had to at least make, put that console in the B tier. And then the 2K games, of course, I went a gap, in the early 2010s, late, early 2000s of not playing the 2K games. And then, starting with like 2K 16 or 17, something like that, I kind of got back into the 2K games. And so the Xbox One was responsible for that. I started playing hockey games outside of the NES hockey. I had played a couple of NHL games when I was younger, but I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't really know hockey. And then going to college at UAH, where hockey was the main sport for a long time, we don't have a football team. And so I got into hockey. I went to some hockey games in college. And so I started playing the NHL games a lot on the Xbox One, the FIFA games. So hockey and soccer, I didn't grow up really watching, but now I'm into those two sports more so than when I was a kid. And so I got I got into the FIFA games on the Xbox One as well. So a lot of the different sports genres that I didn't grow up playing, because I was into basketball, baseball, football when I was younger, because I would watch those, play those and stuff like that. But soccer and hockey, I got into with the Xbox One. So I have fond memories of that. And of course, I kept, the trend going of playing, the story-driven games as well on there. But yeah, the Xbox One, B tier. All right, bridging the gap between the 8th and the 9th generation of video game consoles is the Nintendo Switch. They kind of categorize it in both generations because it's been on the market for a good minute. The Switch is S tier for me. I've been wanting a Switch for a long time, and I finally got one. When did I get my Switch? Like about 6 or 7 months ago now, and I love that thing. I need to play more of it. I need to get back into playing Breath of the Wild and play some more Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. But I love that you can dock it, play it on your TV, but then you can also take it handheld. Like, that is so cool. And this was the handheld that I always wanted when I was younger, to be able to play the same games that I can play at home on the TV on the console. Not the developers making different games using those IPs and franchises, but I get to play those same games that I got a save file for while I'm not at home, like on the go and stuff like that. And so, like, if I'm on vacation, which I've taken it a couple of times with me, if my wife wants to watch something on the TV and we only got one TV in the hotel room, then I can pull out the Switch and play it. And I have Nintendo Online, and so getting to go back and play some old NES, Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis games on the Switch is really cool, because certain games I feel work better on the Switch as far as, you know, being more on the go, like especially the games that you got to kind of grind more so, like RPGs. It's good to have it on the go because you can sit there and play it while you're doing other things, you know, more so than if it's docked and tied to the TV. Like the Switch is just such an amazing console. I have the Pro controller as well, and I typically use that, but I use the Joy-Cons, you know, when I'm playing it on the go. Sometimes I just plug in my Pro controller though, as well. But yeah, like such a cool concept for a console. I'm hoping Nintendo keeps this dual thing going for the future with the next Switch they come out with. I don't know what it's going to be called, Switch 2, we'll just call it that for right now. But I really truly enjoy that thing. Like, it's so cool. I can't wait to finish Breath of the Wild so I can play Tears of the Kingdom. Like, that was kind of, you know, one of the first 3D Zelda games that I've played. I've never really been big into Zelda games, but now I want to go back and finish like Ocarina of Time and Twilight Princess. I started those games when I was younger. Never got into them fully. Never finished them because at times as a kid, I was dumb and I would just prefer to play sports games or something like that. Not that there's nothing wrong with just playing sports games. I love them. But, you know, now I like a wider selection of games. And so, you know, I'm more into, you know, the action adventure games and the RPGs and stuff nowadays more so than I was when I was younger. So Nintendo Switch is S tier for me. That's such an amazing console and one of the best consoles that Nintendo has made since, you know, pretty much the NES and the Super Nintendo days. All right, the Xbox Series X. This is my primary gaming console nowadays. I really love that thing. It's giving the 360 a run for its money, so I gotta put it A tier. Like, I'm not a huge graphics guy, but the games on the Xbox Series X and the PS5 that I'm about to talk about in a little bit, they just look so crisp and so good. And usually every game that I get, I play on my Series X. I got the PS5 for the exclusives, and so I bought the Series X first, and it was kind of my first foray into, you know, the current gen. I guess, well, do they still consider it next gen? But you know, this current generation of games, and you know, like I said, I pretty much play it. You know, everything that I'm currently playing, I play on the Xbox Series X. I love Game Pass on it and getting to experience older Xbox games on it. Like I just bought the Xbox, and this has nothing to do with Game Pass, but just the backwards compatibility of it. I recently bought Ghostbusters, the video game remastered. That was for the Xbox One, and I get to experience that on my Series X. But like, yeah, looking into Game Pass, like a lot of the games that I own, I got for free through Game Pass, because of course you pay for it each month. But I love that they offer, you know, games for free. They offer games day one nowadays, so you get new games that come out, and I get to experience it all on my Xbox Series X, and I love it. It's such a beautiful thing. I've been getting more into buying digital games. I still love collecting physical games, but with my Series X, I have so much space on the hard drive, and I just, you know, delete games that I'm no longer playing and re-download them if I ever decide to play them again. But most of the time, even my older Xbox games, I'm playing on this console, like KOTOR, been playing through that, you know, some, you know, recently the Mass Effect games with the Legendary Edition, I play it on my Series X. And so with it, I don't really have to go back to a lot of my older Xbox consoles. Like even some of my original Xbox games, I can play on there. The only time I play my older Xbox consoles is when I have a game, like I got the 2 Buffy the Vampire Slayer games for the original Xbox that I really want to play one day. I have to go back to the original Xbox to play those games. But for the most part, I love that I can play the older games with the Xbox Series X. I love Game Pass. I love the Series X. The PS5 is also going to be S tier. I love that thing. That DualSense controller is probably my favorite controller of all time. And y'all know I like the Xbox controllers more so because of the offset thumbsticks. But oh man, the feel of that DualSense controller and the response of that controller, and how certain games, you know, you get the vibrations and various things like that, the haptic feedback or whatever. Such an amazing console. And I play some of my games on the PS5, especially the exclusives, but I've purchased some games that weren't necessarily exclusives on there, Like, I got Hogwarts Legacy on my PS5, but yeah, PS5. That one with the Xbox Series X, like, I don't know what they're gonna be able to do next. I guess VR is becoming more of a thing, but I can't wait to see what they do with the next Xbox and the PS6. Like, because just like I felt with older consoles, I feel like at this point we've reached kind of the pinnacle of 3D gaming. I don't know how much better these games can get. They may surprise me. I don't know in the future with the newer consoles, but yeah, the games look so good on these two consoles, and just some of the things that they've been able to do. Like, I haven't played Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, but I've seen, you know, parts of it on YouTube with some of my buddies playing it, and just the warping through the portals and the various things that you see with the PS5. Like, oh man, it's so crazy. It's so cool. And I love that indie games are available. So I'm kind of now overlapping the PS5 and the Xbox Series X, but to me, they're one and the same, and I know fanboys will disagree with that. I don't mind gaming on either one of them, to be honest. Any new game that comes out, I primarily get it for the Xbox, but I've been buying more for the PS5 as well. So kind of almost equal, you know, with those two consoles. I don't even know where I was going with that. But I just love both of those consoles, and yeah, I'm kind of talking about them both at the same time, but they're really fun. It's such an amazing time to be a gamer. Oh, I was going to say indie games that you can play on PC at first, you can now play on the Switch, the Series X, and the PS5, a lot of them. And so it's really cool getting to experience some of those indie games, especially indie horror games that I love so much, on console now. That brings me to the Steam Deck, which is neat to play. I really want a Steam Deck. I'm hoping to get one eventually, because I would love to get to play some Steam games that are PC only available games on the go. And so I haven't played the Steam Deck yet, but I feel like it'll probably be A or S tier for me once I get my hands on it and get to see how it fully works. So there is my console ranking tier list, starting back from the third generation between Nintendo, Sega, Sony, and Microsoft, all the way up to this current generation. I did include the Atari 2600 on here, even though it's from the second generation, because it kickstarted my video game playing days. It's my first console that I experienced. So there you go. This is a look at my list. Again, if you disagree, that's cool. Drop me a comment below. Let me know your thoughts about my tier list, and let me know your thoughts about what your tier list would be, what it would look like, which consoles that I don't have in my S tier that you would put in the S tier. And I have so many consoles that's B tier or higher because I just love video games. Like, it typically doesn't matter the console for me, as long as I'm getting to enjoy an immersive story, or getting to, you know, play a mindless game like a sports game where I can just sit back and just relax and just lose myself in the game, and as an escape from, you know, real life stuff for at least a little bit. I'll hit that like button if you like this video. I do enjoy making these ranking videos, and I hope they're entertaining. I hope you guys enjoy them. If you do, hit that like button. I can't wait to do some more of these in the future. I will do some more of these in the future, but I just thought, well, let's take a look at some of the consoles and, you know, try to kind of force myself to kind of think, where would I rank these consoles on a list? I finally did it. And, you know, some of these may change with more experience or based on my mood. Like, there's several in that A tier that I feel could get moved up to the S tier. There's some in the B tier that could be moved up to A tier as well, if I had more experience with it. If you're new around here, check out all of my content. I don't have a whole lot of ranking videos on my channel yet. I have a couple other ones. Some I do more of a countdown style, like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And then I do have another one, a Mass Effect one, though, that I did a tier maker tier list. And I hope to do more of both in the future. I'm actually going to record probably tomorrow another ranking video where I do like a more countdown style. So if you like the content, I do Let's Plays, indie horror games primarily, and sports games. So if you like the content, definitely hit that subscribe button. I would greatly appreciate it. And I will see you guys in another video. I've been talking for almost 2 hours. Of course, you're probably not going to see 2 hours of content, but I'm about to get out of here. I'm done recording for the day. I will see you guys in another video, whatever video that may be. Thank you so much for spending time with me today. You could have been anywhere in the world ranking consoles yourself, but you chose to spend some time with your boy Azkhalon, and I greatly appreciate it. Y'all take care. Peace.